Welcome to the Build Relevance Podcast. I'm Bob Schnyder, and after 25 plus years in manufacturing, I've seen firsthand how much business has evolved. The podcast is dedicated to exploring new ideas and fresh perspectives on growth and scalability, helping you rethink traditional operations and future-proof your business. Join us to learn how to from this industry disruptors and scale up your knowledge. Like and subscribe for ongoing updates. Today, we have Frank Bertini from Universal Grip Company. Today's focus is going to be on innovation and traditional manufacturing, leveraging AI and technical marketing and business growth, and competing as a small business. Welcome to the show, Frank. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks so much. Excited to be here.
Yeah. For our listeners, you're the co-founder of Universal Grip Company, a company that provides main laboratory equipment for tensile testing. Many people might not think that's important for this, but it's crucial for everyday business. Can you start by giving us a brief overview of Universal Grip Company and what you specialize in?
Yeah, of course. So you mentioned it right at the beginning, tensile testing. So basically, any company who manufactures anything needs to know how strong their product is from a material development perspective. So one of the main criteria for that is tensile strength. So whether it's a bolt in an aircraft or a seatbelt in automotive to simple things like opening a bag of chips or pulling on some toilet paper or paper towel or something like this. All of these materials, any man-made material needs to be tested. So what we do is we sell all of the grips and fixtures to do this. We're one of the only companies that makes custom grips. And then we also sell the testing machines, and we've expanded into the full solution. So we're able to provide solutions to small businesses, medium, large businesses who may be doing this type of testing. And we compete against some major 1,000 employee plus companies in this space. It's a 100-year-old industry. So
Fascinating. Yeah, and it's part of it. It's an essential part of your business that people don't know about. I know from my own background in manufacturing that ensuring product quality is so important and it's paramount. You mentioned while the core business of tensile testing hasn't seen much innovation, your approach to running the business is anything but traditional. Can you share a bit about your journey and your passion for Universal Grip and how you've approached transforming what you describe as that 100-year-old business into something innovative and forward thinking?
yeah, of course. So that's really been the focus of the whole business is how can we do this with limited resources? We don't have huge investors. We don't have huge amounts of debt to take on. It's basically just we have a lot of knowledge, and how do we bring that to the public and the testing community in a way that's innovative and new? So one thing we've done is really leaned heavily on media, not necessarily social media, but things like videos, pictures, text. So we've actually been able to create one of the largest libraries in the world of testing equipment articles, and these are all defined by something called an ISO standard or an ASTM standard. So the way
Mhm.
our customers find us is by searching these standards. So what we've done is taken knowledge that was in a textbook buried in an old library that you'd have to go and dig out and discover, and we put it online, and we put it online in a way that's easily digestible with nuggets of information, and it's just easy for customers and researchers and the like to access the information. So for years, this information was kind of not necessarily secreted or guarded, but just sort
Mhm.
of difficult to access. So that's really the main difference for us and why we're able to compete is just because with YouTube and the internet and all this new technology, we're able to get in front of people in a way that's not like a commercial, but it's they're trying to answer a question. They have a question about the sample size or what kind of grip to use or what the standard procedure is, and they can find it from us within a couple minutes of searching, whereas before it would be like a whole day activity.
Yeah, And I think that, a lot of your YouTube videos really showcase a lot of the visual perspective. I think that really helps to increase people's understanding of what's really going on. So for example, with this, the tensile strength, people understand that it's stretchy, but when they're actually being able to see it live, that's really something that's interesting to showcase. And have you found that these videos worked really well for you?
Yes, primarily because the topic is so intricate and so detailed. So our business is a high mix business. We only sell a handful of each type of product each year, but we have thousands of products. So
Mhm.
almost everything needs to be customized. Almost everything needs to be tailored to the specific customer with their sample and their requirements. So for them to be able to see it and almost touch it and understand exactly what they're getting, maybe the trade-offs of lower budget versus higher budget, things like pneumatic grips, which are a little bit more automated and they operate with air and they kind of automatically close versus a manual, which might take 30 seconds. How does that reflect and how does that impact the technician who's doing this maybe 8 hours a day? So these are the types of ideas that you can easily convey through video within a minute versus
Mhm.
a call or explaining people, what it is or writing them in an email. So in many cases, you don't even need to have the conversation. You've already delivered the value in a way that's on the customer's timeline. Maybe it's after work and they saw the video at 7 p.m. Because they know the next day this problem is coming up. So it's it's on their schedule, and I think people really like that, where it's just like
Mhm.
information on demand. They don't have to have me in front of them at a defined time and kill an hour to do it. They can just find it themselves and access it themselves.
Almost like they can do it on their time, or if they're in the moment looking for things. And that's kind of a theme that I think you and I talked about in our pre-show, is like allowing people to find the right information at the right time. So that's a perfect segue into kind of doing more deeper dive in AI technology, and also competing with larger companies. You'd mentioned, with budgets being challenging, you shared a lot of this, despite that you're being a traditional industry, you're leveraging technology to create marketing 10 times faster than larger companies. Can you elaborate on how Universal Grip uses AI and internet technologies to create content, manage messaging, automate processes like email responses, basically, essentially allowing you to compete against 1,000 person businesses as a small family operation?
Yeah, of course. So that's really one of our key differentiators, and not so much for the customer, but really for the bottom line of the business. How do we make money from what we're doing in our activity? And the main
Mhm.
way we do it is we sharpen our knives with AI. So in the past, 10 years ago, when I originally wrote the website, it took me 5, 6, 7 years to generate 200, 300 pages of in-depth technical content. Now I can take that and basically generate it within a couple of hours. So everything from building the website pages to writing the YouTube descriptions. And we can do this in a way that's highly descriptive and highly valuable information without it seeming overly sort of like content generated. And so if you go to, for instance, the ASTM, DIN, ISO, GIS, you can see all of our standards. And so we write them in a way where it's like nuggets of information. So if they're doing a particular test,
Mhm.
they can find it. So we write it, we use AI, we edit it. So it's not just like a bunch of gobbledygook, it's actually helpful information. So that's
Mhm.
really just one small layer of what we do. And that's kind of your traditional chat GPT, throw a prompt in and it spits something back out. But in the last 6 months to a year, what we've been doing is using AI agents in our process to handle some of the clerical and back end activities. So for instance, I don't have a full-time accountant, nor can I afford one and put one on the payroll because I don't really have 40 hours of work for them every week.
Right.
I do have 5, 6, 7 hours. I could get a fractional employee, but training them and managing them, it is kind of
Hmm.
very difficult to do. So we use AI to do that. And what I mentioned with the AI agent is we can actually plug it in between multiple programs. So I have the agent plugged into my Gmail, and then that's plugged into my accounting system, which is we use FreshBooks. And then that's also plugged into our CRM system, which is HubSpot. And all of these things are now able to talk to each other. So when I update something in FreshBooks, it automatically
Hmm.
updates in HubSpot. So I don't need two, three, four salespeople. I don't need a pre-sales engineer to set appointments. I don't need account managers because it's all kind of happening automatically. I do a lot of organization, put everything into the right folders. It still takes time at some point, but queuing it up, serving it up on a nice
Hmm.
silver platter for me where I can just we even have the AI writing us draft emails and draft responses.
Hmm.
So I go in, I just enter the pricing and hit send. Where so that saves me 5 minutes, 6 minutes, but that 20 times, 30 times a day, that's 3 hours, 3 hours of time for a founder. I mean, you're talking about hundreds, thousands of dollars of value. So you see a lot of things, the AI skeptics, oh, it has no real world value. Oh, what's the use case? It's really these AI agents plugged into your business and
Hmm.
eliminating paperwork and processes and back end work. So this keeps our overhead low. We're able to offer better pricing to the customers, better support. We're just on top of the business much better.
Hmm. No, I mean, that's incredible. It sounds similar to what I've been building for my business over, the years. I mean, kind of, I've realized that AI is the next wave of like kind of democratizing the industry because
Yes.
where the website originally did that, because when I built my first website in like 1997, and that created, it almost gave this persona that we were this huge business because no one else had those. So, and as you build a website, no one knows how big your company is based off of your site. And all they really care about is the content. So now the content's there. Now with AI, you're able to do multiple things that larger companies pay lots of people for, and you can do it at scale. And that's exactly what I've been doing. So, I built a model that allows me to bring prospects and put meetings on my calendar, and thought, wow, this is something amazing. I want to bring this and share with others. And I'm exploring different ways of connecting businesses, similar to what you've been talking about there. And I'm like, I didn't even think about accounting. So that's a new
Right.
little nugget for me to look into and add as well. So that's great. And that's really why I love this podcast so much, is because it just allows us to have, the more I talk to people, the more I realize that it's, you can always learn and continue to learn and just continue to pick up nuggets from people. And it's fantastic. So, I know you kind of talked about that, some of those AI driven strategies and automations. Um, does this, what are some of the, how does these things translate into results for Universal Grip, or what are some key things that, tangible results that you've seen from it?
Yeah, of course. So if you think about our business, or really any business, it's basically like a giant funnel. You have traffic coming into the website, that traffic converts to leads, the leads some convert to sales, and then you execute on the sales. So from the pre-sales and the marketing side, what we do is we generate content. So I will edit the video, I will have AI do the description. I'll take the transcript of me doing the voiceover, so I'll voice over a lot of the videos, take the transcript, throw that into ChatGPT. Now it's reading what I just said, but writing it out in a polished, clear fashion. So that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing we're doing. Another thing that we're doing really in terms of results is I've actually cataloged every single email for the whole history of the business, 10 years of email. I think it's close to 100,000 emails. And that is essentially become an AI brain knowledge center database that I can then go and use for all sorts of different things. So one thing is marketing. So instead of sending out an email newsletter to everyone, I can actually cater it and I can say, hey, so I call it UGC HQ is like the what I've named the AI. So it knows when I'm saying that, I'm talking
Uh,
to um so I say, hey, dig through emails for the last 10 years. Look at everyone who I've talked to or has inquired about a video extensometer and tell them that we're running a 10% sale from now until the end of Q1. If you order 10% off, flat rate, it can then go and say, okay, there was 176 different contacts that
mhm,
were interested in this. Write me an email, keep it as a draft. Maybe I want to control the actual sending or just send it. And
mhm,
then I've done that on my drive to work, and it took me 5 minutes. I have a voice prompter. We use Slack to voice prompts the AI. So like I can actually do this, and I do this on like a weekly basis. I'll have an idea will pop into my head, and I can execute it within a few minutes without having approvals and sending it to the marketing team and what does VP of sales think about this? And, we have to run it by senior management. And weeks have passed and I've done this 10 or 20 times in the weeks it takes a big company to do the same. So this is like a very real thing. And like you said, it's democratizing the whole economy. I think for 20, 30, 40 years, all of the companies have been merging and getting bigger, but this AI thing is breaking them up and making them smaller. People are moving away from cities and wanting to do their own business and doing the solopreneur thing or doing the side hustle, doing the side business. This is all actually possible now, where before it would just take simply too much time to do it.
mhm. Yeah, and AI seems to be able to complement your work and make you more efficient. And I think that a lot of times people fear it as like, oh, it's going to replace people. Well, it's only going to replace the people who are not smart enough to realize that they can use this and leverage this technology to make them do more. And if they're doing more, they're able to do more in their business. They're able to grow their business and scale it even better and take it to the next heights. And that's kind of where, growth and transformation is always something you should be keeping an eye on, and it's like it's amazing. I think a lot of the stuff you're doing. But you in our pre-call, you also mentioned that you kind of your personal brand and where you're teaching people how to start and found their own businesses, primarily around organic marketing, SEO, and creating good content. So what are some of the core concepts or strategies you emphasize for aspiring entrepreneurs and small business owners who want to leverage attention growth, especially for those starting with limited resources, kind of like what you mentioned earlier?
Definitely. Yeah. So I have a personal brand business called Fast Forward Founders. And in that, I teach people who may be in sales or marketing, kind of maybe already in the corporate sphere, to take what they're already selling, take their existing knowledge, and do that completely for themselves by themselves using a distributor model. So buying equipment maybe from overseas or from different vendors and then
Mhm.
reselling it. So 9 to 10% of the whole economy is distributors, people like warehousers who buy in bulk and then do distribution, people who actually transport the things, resellers. Like this is like a huge thing. Like distribution is like a huge part of the economy. So becoming a distributor for yourself, one is very easy because there's no overhead for manufacturing, R&D, product support, quality. Like this is already in place at the manufacturer that you're buying from. So say, for instance, you sell microscopes for your day job and you want to do it for yourself. You're entrepreneurial, you're kind of higher up, maybe you hit the ceiling, maybe a little bit frustrated, or maybe just have more time, more energy. Everyone wants to start a business. Everyone I talk to wants to start a business. They don't know where to start. So where you can start is selling something that's already existing. There's an existing market, there's an existing stream of money. You just need to put a net into that stream and start catching some of it. So I teach people how to build a website, how to initiate supply with the supplier, how to set up that first distributor contract, how that looks, where to get products. I give people ideas for different things they can sell. A good way to start is selling the accessories for whatever system you're trying to sell. That's how I got into it. So it's lower risk, lower competition, lower dollar amount, just to kind of get your feet wet. But yeah, these concepts stretch far and wide. And yeah, the personal brand, I kind of do it as a hobby. It's not for profit. I don't really take any money or sell anything for that. It's a separate YouTube channel. We run it through school. But it's a lot of fun. I get to help people. Everyone has ideas. One guy, he's doing quantum computing. Another guy, he's doing fish farms in Southeast Asia. So it's there's so many ideas, and the best part about it is anyone can start nowadays.
Yeah. And I think that's great that you're connecting people with great ideas with the tools and resources that they can actually help them grow and scale. And same thing. That's kind of the same thing I'm trying to do is just really, it because the more people understand all this stuff, the more they can execute and do. And a perfect example is you've been able to maximize your work and efficiencies to where now you have more time to do these types of things and to give back. It's the same thing I've done. So, I think that those are really, um, you know, I think we've kind of found some like mindsets that are like a little bit different that we're kind of approaching things. And I feel like a lot of companies and industry, as far as larger companies or owners are not thinking that same way. So, that's a perfect segue into kind of talking about a little bit overcoming traditional mindsets and kind of talking about future trends. So I mean, clear that the approach about transforming traditional methods with modern tools. For companies like in established industries, like for example, manufacturing, there can often be a lot of resistance to adopting new technologies, especially or changing kind of the typical way things always been done. And that it's trying to break that mold. Kind of. So, what advice do you have for these companies that might be stuck in these traditional ways? To help them embrace that innovation and leverage like tools like for AI growth.
Yeah, of course. So something we did actually within our business, Universal Grip, is we created a sister company, a sister brand, where we essentially sell everything. It's the same um, product line, and we're in the same industry, but it's a new brand, and we've basically reskinned, rehashed everything. So we have a new logo, a new ethos, kind of like a new color scheme, everything. And we did that because we wanted to be experimental and new and branching out, but we also didn't want to
Hmm.
lose anything on the old side. So if you have a really old brand, 50, 60, 80-year company, 300-year-old company maybe, and you don't want to risk, the quality, say it's like an automotive company and they're all about, the quality and the brand, and that's really important. Like you really can't do anything without having marketing approve it because of the brands. Like the brand owner is almost runs the whole system. So if you want to escape that sort of mindset and complex, what you can do is create a sister brand and make it completely new, put in new management, a micro CEO for that brand, and say, this is experimental. We're doing new things. We're doing um, social media marketing, which we've never done before. We're doing a YouTube channel, and we're committing to it, and we're doing 2, 3 videos a day. So all these different things, you do that inside the sister brand while preserving the main sort of mothership. That's what I would suggest for the big companies who are more risk averse.
Kind of almost like creating a little wet works kind of skunk works project. So it's like it's a side element that allows companies to test these things out without damaging their existing brand. I think that's a fantastic approach, and I think more companies could really benefit from that. And who knows, maybe that new fresh company is also going to tie in and reach a different audience. I know for myself, that there's always that separation of kind of old school people who react to specific ways of reaching those people, but then it's the younger kind of newer approach with social, with these types of things, creating that can help bridge that gap in a much more efficient manner and in a much more interesting manner, because then you're able to, a lot of people don't realize is a lot of companies don't, or young people who are coming out, they don't want to work for traditional companies. They want to work for fresh, vibrant, new kind of companies that are hip, trendy, looking to do these wonderful things, and for them to be able to showcase their skills. So it seems that that is a perfect opportunity to have almost the best of both worlds on that aspect. So that's really fantastic advice. Um, you also highlighted the importance of like video content and skating, stating that you're skating to where the puck is going to be, which by the way, I love that quote because I use that myself. The Gretzky line is so fantastic. It's so pertinent because it shows people, people often think it's like, okay, I gotta get a point A to point B. And it's like, well, why don't you go to where you want to go in point C and make that happen? So I love that. But you said skating participants, the importance of that interactive video. And that's that people don't want to read walls of text. So, can you elaborate like on your vision for video and marketing, and how Universal Grip is using bite-sized direct video content to engage customers in a way that respects their time and delivers that exact information?
Yeah, of course. So with video and especially YouTube, it's all about delivering the content that people are expecting when they click on the video. So we try to keep most of our videos short, around 1, 2, 3 minutes long, and just dive right into the content. So this one is really more of a general market video compression testing on plastic, not necessarily saying anything or doing anything here. It's just to kind of show people in general, this is plastic testing, and this is kind of what it looks like at the end. The sample kind of breaks. And so this is just a way to get eyes on the business. But in the other videos, we do in-depth description. We handle the product, we take it apart, we show like which screws to pull. Yeah, like this one. So this is testing cardboard. So for shipping, so everyone's getting stuff shipped. E-commerce is huge. The cardboard industry is huge. So we sell a special fixture. This specific test is called ASTM C364. You'll see this printed on every single cardboard box that's out there, any like maybe higher end one, we'll call it. So you just crush this and see how strong it is. But we narrate this, we explain to the user why this is important, how to use the test, how to run the test. But I think you talked about where the puck is going. I think a lot of businesses are going to be looking for CEOs and high-level people who are good on camera, who can talk without a script, who don't seem robotic. That's the issue, I think, with a lot of this engineering content is they throw an engineer on there because he's knowledgeable and knows what he's talking about, but then like his face doesn't even move when he's talking. Like he looks like a AI guy or even, even worse. So if you like, I think a lot of boards and a lot of big companies are thinking more and more about this. Like, is this person presentable? Can they make videos on camera? Can they go off script while sticking to the message at the same time? So for small founders, medium-sized business, large business, if you're not good at video and being on camera, you better have someone who is, or else it's going to be very difficult to get people engaged with the product. I saw a statistic somewhere. It was like the average American watches 6 hours of TV. and then is also on social media for 6 hours, which
Right.
is great because that's like 12 hours, if it's like when do they do anything? But I think it's close to true. I think it's actually
Mhm.
like, yeah, if you're not on your phone, you're on the TV, and then if you're not on the TV, you're back on the phone. So if you can't get in front of people and get straight to the point and have a hook and generate some interest and connect with the customer, then you're going to lose out. And then another thing, just to add on to it, is that with AI and the algorithms, they actually transcribe what you're talking about, put it into a decision-making matrix, and then spit it back
Right.
out to the people that are engaged in that stuff. So
Mhm.
it's like an automatic and free way to target an individual person in an individual state without needing any demographic info. It's just, oh, they clicked on compression testing videos in the past, and I posted one. The algorithm matches, and then that's a potential customer for us. And all it costs me is the time to make the video. That's it.
Yeah. And the other thing that's great about videos as well is that once they're out there, they're evergreen. They live in their ongoing. And not only can people discover them, but you can actually drive people to that. So in those emails you're referring to, into all of the marketing that you're doing, in some of the sales emails, you're like, hey, come look at this stuff, see if it's something that you're interested in. So you're not necessarily selling, you're essentially giving them the resources to let them choose when they want to engage with you, or if they do at all. And back to your point about having the right face, the right, being somebody comfortable on camera is so important because that creates that emotional connection as well. I know I found that, like, a past CEO of mine, we tried to get him to do that, and he was like, I will not. I mean, and he's just like following the
Yeah.
script, and he's
Yeah,
moving
it's
his head,
tough.
and he's doing all the, everything wrong. And it was just one of those, okay, we have to find somebody who can be better. So I've always found that, finding the right person makes a lot of it, a big difference with that as well. And, because the person who may be the most technical and the most that would resonate with people is horrible. I had engineer who was one of the most knowledgeable people, but you put him in front of a camera and he freezes up. He can't do that. He wouldn't even go to trade shows, wouldn't go to his, and would refuse to talk to people. Talk to him all day on the phone, but it's that confrontation that has the issue. So finding ways to, or finding the right person makes the big difference. Because if, I found somebody who was very easy to talk to on camera, he was able to then, I added him, got him on a speaker circuit, got the awards, got all these things going. And so it does, it all cascades in an overall effect. And that's kind of where, even now, there's ways you could even clone that person, and then you could use that for marketing opportunities as well. So there's all sorts of different ways to leverage and maximize the right pieces to maximize what you're doing. So I mean, and that's what's I mean, for me, I just feel like there's so much opportunity there. And kind of, looking ahead, what excites you most about the future of marketing, especially with rapid advancements with the AI digital platforms? And how do you see Universal Grip continuing to evolve and play a role in those emerging trends? Are there specific technologies or strategies you're keeping your eye on?
Yeah, yeah. So I think this AI agent thing is huge. So we're actually working on a project to have a complete funnel, quote to cash AI agent process that can basically handle all of the easy stuff in the business. So we have easy off the shelf um, type of business. It's close to e-commerce where they can almost just buy it online, but you still need to have a little bit of
Mhm.
engineering just to make sure, hey, it's going to work. And because we don't really like to handle returns, it's a big hassle and it's not necessary. So
Right.
we have something like a 99.6% um, rate on we ship them the product, it works, they like it, there's no problem. So we want to keep that. And if you start doing e-com, you kind of run into, oh, customer changed their mind, they didn't want it. And so we want to stay as far away as that as possible. So the way we're doing that is through AI and making like a complete end-to-end brain essentially based off my old email treasure trove of knowledge and information. And there's just so much in there that we've built up and being able to access that. So that's one thing I'm most excited about because that is expandable, scalable. It could be one salesperson, it could be five, it could be
Hmm.
500. Not that our market is that large, but that's that's going to be huge for us. The targeted marketing is very interesting to us, being able to go back through previous leads or catching new people who are highly interested in specific subjects that we cover. That's big. And then what you said, the AI clones, I don't think for our business it's as important. It's more for like social media and those types of personal brands. I think that'll be bigger. Us, it's still very much put the product on camera and show it. And AI won't really be able to do that. So we're in this space where we're using AI a lot, but also kind of guarding against it at the same time. And I think that's the right play is we're moving towards a space where AI is going to take jobs, UBI, universal basic income, that's going to be a real thing. So if you're building a business, you need to make sure that it's something that is either difficult or impossible for artificial intelligence to do. But at the same time, for the basic stuff, you are using it and getting the most out of it. So yeah, I mean, it's just like the internet and just like when I made my first website in 2015, that was kind of for me, it was YouTube back then. That was the equalizer. That was the exciting technology. Hey, I have a broadcasting and distribution service at my fingertips.
Right.
This is like $1 trillion of infrastructure that is just free to me right now. Thank you. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Um, I know what to do. I know just what to do with that. Thank you. And same with AI. So uh, it's since ChatGPT was sort of in beta, I've been using it. So it's been 2 or 3 years now. Now it's ubiquitous. People are using it for companionship and entertainment and
Right.
stuff. But I mean, we have use cases. I have 10 use cases where it saves me time, saves me money, or makes me money. Real use business cases that are giving me the edge.
Yeah. No, and I think for smaller companies, it makes sense to do it yourself to be able to be that person. You don't have, I was referring with like the AI clones of being like with a larger company, with being able to like someone who you don't get that time, the mind share of using that. And so I definitely feel like there's more than enough to do a lot of this stuff yourself to build this and complement your business. And so, so for like business leaders and entrepreneurs listening right now, they're going to subsistence and operations. What's kind of the single most crucial piece of advice you would offer them to start their journey moving forward in innovative and efficient growth?
Yeah, so I would say you have to dedicate and split your time and be able to invest a certain amount of time. So I like to do 60-70% is like working in the business. I still have a lot of things that I need to automate and systematize and maybe hire for too. We do have a couple of employees. Then 20-30% is working on the business where I'm doing
Right.
the systems. And then that 10% time, it really needs to be experimental. Hey, if this doesn't work, I'm okay
Hmm.
with throwing it away.
Right.
But if you're just starting, like you don't have a business, I'd say just start. Even before you have a product, start posting, start writing about it, start developing a website. You can
Hmm.
sort of do some social engineering once you get going and say, go to a new supplier, say, hey, our existing supplier, we have tariffs, we have shipping delays, whatever the reason is. Could we evaluate you? Would you be interested? They see your website, they see you're kind of already doing it,
Mhm.
and they say, "Oh yeah,"
Right.
and then that's your first supplier right there. They give you the price book, 1,000 products, your 25, 30, 35% markup, then you're off to the races. So, um,
Hmm.
yeah, just get started activity, the universe rewards activity. You can think about it and be manifesting as much as you want, but it's still you're actually moving your fingers on the keyboard and clicking things and trying things, breaking things. I just broke one of my websites last week. It got tanked, but now I'm like trying to repair it. But when I do, it's going to be stronger than ever. So that's the thing is you get these challenges and you just have to work through them.
Yeah.
And it's really the obstacle is the way. There's a book titled by that, and that's really just the way you have to embrace it, whether in business or as a founder or a business owner. If you're in sales or anything regarding business, like if you're not just working an hourly job, this your ability to overcome the challenges is going to be how you make money.
No, and one of my favorite quotes is fail fast, fail forward. So it's like, don't be afraid to make those mistakes. And I think you're spot on. It's like get out there, start doing stuff, learn and adjust and get the right pieces. It's not going to be perfect when you first come out the door, and it's not going to be perfect the way you ideally, but just do it, get it out there, and then start working to refine it because over time you will get better at it. You will get doing it. And so more the work it's like practice that understanding and able to position yourself to where, okay, now it makes sense. And then those small incremental changes that you're able to do, as you said, through your knowledge, through learnings, through getting these types of things will really make it so much better for people. So, yeah, that's a perfect note to end on, Frank. Thanks so much for your time and for sharing your expertise. I think you provided a wealth of information where people can really understand and kind of hopefully be inspired to kind of start themselves. So, where can our listeners find your learn more about you and your personal brand and everything about you?
Yeah, of course. So probably one of the easiest ways to find me is on LinkedIn. I have a pretty big following there. Just my name, Frank Bertini. You'll find me. We also have Fast Forward Founders, and I'm on all the different social media channels, Instagram, even TikTok. But it's there. You have our website here, Universal Grip Co. This is more for industrial customers. It's not really a general market thing. It's really some quality managers will be interested in it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm highly responsive on LinkedIn, my website there for Fast Forward Founders. I have an email
Hmm.
for that. So, um,
Hmm.
yeah, you can try to be as easily accessible as possible to a point, but happy to help any new founders, existing business
Hmm.
managers. So yeah, this is some of the different programs that I offer all for free through my
Hmm.
school community. You can join the community in school. And yeah, just happy to contribute to the podcast. Thanks again, Bob. It was fun hashing
Yeah.
out some of these AI concepts, things I think about, and you hear it in the news. I think in the future, the world is really going to go towards the generalist type of person, someone who has a jack of all trades type of mindset for 20, 30, 40 years. It was all about specializing in a niche and
Hmm.
niching. Now with AI, it's smarter than your niche. You can't beat it. It's not just smarter than one person, it's smarter than millions of people all together. So don't compete about it against it. Go around it generally develop like a wide array of skills, and then you'll be just fine.
Yeah. Words of wisdom. That's fantastic. So thanks again, Frank. And yeah, and for I think that this has been so helpful and so amazing. I just can't believe it. So So, and for our listeners, if you ever feel like your sales pipeline could work harder while you sleep, Build Relevance helps transform manufacturing companies to growth leadership. Reach out for a free growth plan. Check out our website, or you can reach me at bob@buildrelevance.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for ongoing updates. Thank you, Frank, once again. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and yeah, look forward to keeping in touch and having more conversations with you because it's been super helpful. So. Excellent. Well, so much. Thanks so much. Have a great day. And yeah, really appreciate it.
Thanks. You as well, Bob. Talk soon.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.